right, the fourth technique in Hijiwaza is called Udahenari. And in Udahenari, we have to approach the idea with some of the ideas that came out of Tomiki's earlier work. Pretty much every time Uke's arm was in a configuration of rolling this way, of turning at the wrist, of turning at the elbow, of the shoulder going this way, you had some type of gaish. Every time the arm rolled the other way, you have this coiling function there. You have a type of Hineri. Now, we tend to mistake the Hineri idea here with what's going on at the wrist, because we normally think of this as a typical Koto Hineri. But you may well have this configuration as well with the wrist back for Koto Hineri. And in Tomiki's work in the 15, the kata that preceded before the 17, he described both as being a function of Hineri. Both of them are doing the shoulder action here that we're talking about, whether the wrist is up and pushing like a regular Koto Hineri in our hand, or whether we're pushing the back of the wrist and we're folding the elbow. Either way, you have a nice Udahenari action. So just being clear, Udahenari is the coiling of that arm back and putting pressure through the shoulder blade here. So an extreme form of this would be to drive it up over his head, and you could see the shoulder could dislocate, or we could drive this up over his head, and again, his shoulder wants to start to dislocate. So we safety margin it by placing it into his body, so we cannot flex through the shoulder violently and throw it just with a little turning action, but rather than trying to torque through the arm. But we should understand that the mechanism of the lock, what it's actually describing, is this Hineri action on the arm from behind, either here or here, either way. And I'll show you how we get to either of those. If we're picking it off and feeding into the mirror-sided hand in some way, shape, or form, and we begin like we did in hiki-otoshi, when we step back, this pushing drive, when we step into the locking action, this pushing drive is going to give us the function of a palm-to-palm push for the Hineri as we throw. Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Here we go. As we throw. Good. Don't want to throw him off the floor. If we pick it off and hand it to ourselves in this already reversed position as we step through, you have the same kind of function there. In either case, you'd like to lock it to their body and push through the line of their hips rather than through their shoulder socket so as not to endanger them. This is a fairly overwhelming lock. Once it's put on, once you've established this position, regardless of whether you're holding here or here, if all you were to do was to sit down, or say take a little side fall, for instance, the resulting fall for uke would be fairly catastrophic. If they try to put an arm out to block it, their arm is going to crumple up underneath them. They're largely going to land head first on the ground. Maybe it's going to help possibly disarticulate the shoulder socket as well. So it's a fairly catastrophic conclusion. It's a fairly terrible place to wind up, this particular type of locking mechanism. And we're basically just trying to mediate the technique to not injure uke from the point that the lock comes on. So we need to practice the lock well enough that we have confidence in it, whichever way we pick it off, but not get so tied into, oh, I got to make this throw go in this particular way or not. If you're just aware that you could just kneel down or sit or take a back fall and it's all going to be bad for uke, then this little pushing gesture, yeah, it's probably the minimalist thing you can do to give him an easy way out of the thing without being overly overwhelmed in the shoulder socket. Now, how we pick it off, you have a variety of ways. You can step back and into it, come around the corner, very nice. Good. We can go straight around and away. Lots of ways, and it really doesn't matter too much. In terms of your balance break function, the main element you look for in any of these cases is that once you have a position of extension, Going to the lock is a forward stepping action. You're going to step forward with the outside leg. That's kind of critical. All of the forms have that basic mechanism involved. So if you just start right from the get-go, hey, forward step. The forward step and then the hip switch gives you the nice driving function and defines the relationship for you pretty nicely. If you try to enter this with the wrong foot, with the inside leg, for instance, you run into his shoulder and you get kind of bogged down. You have trouble wrapping around. It's the driving through the outside leg step that sets you into position nicely and makes an easy throw go for you. So this little stepping in position, this little wrapping position, stepping down and in with the outside leg will give you the function you're looking for to make the Udahenari nice and easy for yourself. So try that out, see how it works for you.